Ladies and gentlemen, the Smithtown Planning Board is now in session. Will you join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Jim, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We thank you. Have you met Lucretia? I have a little housekeeping this evening before we start. First of all, I want to welcome Paul D'Amato as a new appointee to the Planning Board and to introduce the new counsel to the Planning Board, Lucretia Lucevero. And we'll have a resolution there by Blaise there to authenticate it.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The Planning Department offers the following resolution for the Board's consideration. Be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby approves Lucretia Lucevero as counsel to the Planning Board for the term of 1 year to expire on December 31st, 2013.
Thank you. Motion?
I move that we adopt the resolution as read by the Planning Department.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Lucretia, this is Jim Earhart. He says there he hasn't met you, but he'll certainly make it a point. All right, please. Agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item on the agenda, the Planning Department recommends the following items for adjournment as we have insufficient information to act upon them. Part 2, Item 1, number 2011-01, All Seasons Motor Lodge. Item 2, number 2012-04, Storybook Homes. Item 3, number 2012-02, Carlson Associates. Item 4, number 2009-05, FB4 Realty. Item 5, number 773, Scholar Estates. Item 6, the 288 application of Olivia Estates. Part 3, item 7, number 2010-06, KVC Holdings. Item 8, number 911A, Glen Hill Northern. Item 9, the transfer of development rights for VIP Real Properties. Mr. Chairman, these are the items the Planning Department recommends for adjournment.
Is there anybody here to be heard on those items to be adjourned? Hearing none, a motion.
Motion to adjourn the items read.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 4, Item 10, number 1094, Mystic Falls. Mr. Chairman, this is actually for the review of the board this evening for two applications made by the applicant regarding a sidewalk waiver which was previously presented to the Planning Board, and most recently a request to install a required fence along the town of Smithtown designated conservation easement. The applicant has asked that the board consider both applications this evening for a decision. We have updated the memorandum, and I would like to read that update for you onto the record. Upon further review of the applicant's request, planning suggests that if the board wishes to approve the request, that being for the waiver of the fencing, covenants and restrictions be implemented in addition to the installation of posts and signs to protect the town property. Restrictions should be imposed pertaining to dumping debris, encroachment, cutting into or regrading the slopes, and the removal of vegetation and trees. These covenants and restrictions should be placed on lots 2 through 6 and drafted in a form acceptable to the town attorney. Additionally, the applicant should install posts and signs at each of the rear property corners for lots 2 through 6 and at the center of each rear property boundary for all 5 lots. In total, the applicant would be required to install 11 posts with signs along the rear property boundaries for all 5 lots and the town property. The applicant has requested that the board render their decision for both the previously submitted sidewalk waiver and the fence waiver this evening. The Planning Department offers the following resolutions for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby denies the request of James Fox, doing business as Woods Edge Properties, LLC, to waive the requirement of installing 650 linear feet of sidewalks on the north side of Edgewood Avenue within the subdivision known as Mystic Falls number 1094. As an alternative to installing the 650 feet of sidewalks, the board does not object to a payment in lieu of construction of $2,500 to be used for future sidewalk construction along Edgewood Avenue by the town of Smithtown. Be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby approves the request of James Fox, doing business as Woods Edge Properties LLC, to waive the requirement of installing 748 linear feet of fencing along the boundary lines of lots 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and the Town of Smithtown Conservation Easement subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall install posts and signs at each of the rear property corners for lots 2 through 6, and at the center of each rear property boundary for all 5 lots, identifying the open space as Town of Smithtown property. In total, the applicant would be required to install 11 posts with signs along the rear property boundaries for all 5 lots and the town property. 2, covenants and restrictions pertaining to dumping debris, encroachment, cutting into or regrading the steep slopes, and the removal of vegetation and trees shall be placed on lots 2 through 6 and drafted in a form acceptable to the town attorney. 3, these covenants and restrictions shall be filed in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk. 4, the applicant shall submit copies of all filed documents, including deeds with meets and bounds descriptions with date, stamp, and file numbers to the Planning Department.
Is there anyone to represent the applicant?
New York. I must have made a wrong turn because that's exactly what we wanted. Did I go someplace else?
You couldn't just say thank you?
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this application? All right, a motion on, we have 2 motions to make. One there on the sidewalks and one on sidewalk waivers and one on the 1, 2, and 3, 4 of the fence waivers, all right?
Chairman, could I pose a question?
What?
I don't know if I'm out of order, but I wanted to pose a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, if we're waiving 650 feet of sidewalk installation, what would that cost if they had to put it in?
Doing what?
To install the 650 feet?
13,000 and change.
Okay. Thank you.
And we, when we reviewed this, Paul, there are sidewalks on the opposite side of the street.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, a motion on the first resolution there for the sidewalk waivers.
In the matter of the sidewalk waiver request of Mystic Falls, number 1094, motion to adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Department.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. And a resolution there on the waiver of the fencing.
In the matter of the fencing waiver request of Mystic Falls, number 1094, motion to adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Department.
Second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We still have
Aye.
another,
Opposed?
Mystic
So
Falls
ordered.
to do.
We thank you.
I think there's another resolution because we're asking for an increase in an FAR on lot number 4.
Yeah, we have a memorandum that we're going to read.
What is that?
We have another item on the agenda from Mystic Falls. It's part of item 10. It's the request that the applicant has made to increase the floor area ratio for lot number 4.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The applicant requests to amend the conditions of approval in order to increase the floor area ratio for lot number 4 from 32% to 35% within the subdivision known as Mystic Falls number 1094. The map of Mystic Falls was granted conditional final approval by the Planning Board on June 20th, 2007. This application was approved for a 6-lot subdivision fronting on the north side of a town road known as Edgewood Avenue and on a proposed cul-de-sac to be known as Celestial Court. This subdivision lies within the R43 zoning district, 43,560 square feet minimum, and contains a large amount of environmentally sensitive lands, steep slopes in excess of 15%. In order to preserve the steep slopes, the subdivision was approved as a clustered subdivision, which reduced the size of the lots below the minimum required lot area for the R43 district. At the time of final approval, the board granted variances to increase the FAR on lots 2, 3, and 4 from 20% to 21%, 30%, and 32% respectively to compensate for the reduction in lot size. The applicant is requesting to increase the FAR on Lot 4 from 32% to 35%. The Engineering, Highway, and Traffic Safety Departments have no objection to this waiver request. The Planning Department has performed an on-site inspection of the subdivision and determined that the increase of FAR from 32% to 35% would not have a significant impact on the surrounding area, as the request is limited to within this subdivision only. Therefore, the Planning Department has no objection to the applicant's request. The Planning Department offers the following resolution for the Board's consideration. Be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby approves the request of James Fox, doing business as Woods Edge Properties, LLC, to increase the floor area ratio for Lot 4 from 32% to 35% within the subdivision known as Mystic Falls, number 1094.
Any questions by the board? No questions or motion?
In the matter of Mystic Falls, number 1094, motion to adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 4, Item 11, number 2012-06, Bola LI Development Corp. Mr. Chairman, this application was brought before the Planning Board at the January 16, 2013 Planning Board meeting, at which time it was adjourned pending an on-site inspection by the board members. I understand that all of the board members have completed their inspection, and we have prepared an analysis of the proposal for the board this evening. In your memorandum, Item 6, Evaluation. Advantages. Approval would encourage the cleanup of an unkempt property at a highly visible intersection. Approval would increase the number of gas stations in the town, which could make for a greater convenience to the public. Disadvantages. Approval would tend to exacerbate traffic circulation difficulties at this highly traveled intersection. We note that the traffic study submitted by the petitioner focused on traffic generation rather than on more significant issue of safe traffic circulation. Approval would enlarge retail zoning at a location that should not have been zoned for any commercial uses. The Planning Department recommends that this petition be denied and offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the Planning Board recommends that the Town Board deny the change of zone petition number 2012-06 of Bola LI Operating Corp. for a change of zone from R10, residential single-family, 10,000 square feet minimum, to neighborhood business for the following reasons. 1, an expansion of neighborhood business zoning at this site is not warranted because there is adequate retail zoning in the area to serve both the surrounding residential neighborhoods and the through traffic. 2, this heavily traveled intersection has been designed to limit and direct turning movements to increase traffic safety. The addition of the proposed use will tend to increase the complexity of the intersection and decrease the safety of traffic circulation. If the board prefers to recommend approval of this petition, we suggest that the board include findings to support that recommendation.
Is there anyone here representing the applicant? No one? Members of the board?
You might wanna
Questions?
let them know that we have the tax
No
information.
questions, but my sense is that the board feels that this should be approved or recommended to the town board that this be approved. As for findings, I don't think it's necessary. I think we all expressed our comments at the prior hearing, and I don't think that's necessary at all. But if anybody else has anything to add.
I would just say that there was discussion about what the effect would be on the town as far as revenue, and we know that they're cleaning up a site that's kind of unsightly, and there were statements made on the record regarding the benefits of or the good points of this application. So I think that whatever was on the record on the hearing of the 16th could stand for whatever findings we may have to make.
I agree, and I believe that the traffic expert rendered an opinion that there would be no unsafe circumstances created, that this parcel or parcels would go from $200 per per year on the tax rolls to approximately $50,000 to the town, would create permanent jobs. And as for questioning the need for another fill station at this location, the applicant's willing to bet $2.5 million that there is a need. So I don't see how we can substitute our judgment against that. So I would vote to recommend approval of this zone change petition.
I would also vote to recommend approval.
I think the record shows there what was put forth there. They had traffic experts, they had everybody in here, and that's all on the record to go for review, correct?
Yeah.
All right. No objections, a motion to recommend this petition to the town board?
In the matter of 2012-06, Bowler Long Island Development Corporation, Hauppauge, motion to approve a change of zone petition from R10 residential to NB neighborhood business.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So ordered.
Just so we could be clear, it's our position that we're recommending to the town board that the town
Yes.
board approve it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 5. Item 13, the adoption of minutes for the June 6th, June 20th, and December 19th, 2012 Planning Board meetings.
Motion for the minutes of June 6th, June 20th, and December the 19th.
I move that we adopt the minutes of the June 6th, 2012, June 20th, 2012, and December 19th, 2012 meetings.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Yes. Mr.
right,
Chairman, I
then.
just want the board to be aware that at the back of your packet, there are several attachments, copies of letters that the Planning Department has received addressed to the chairman and the board members. I just wanted to direct you to one in particular, which was written by Mr. Vincent Guardino regarding a previously approved subdivision known as Hummingbird Estates, which the board did approve, I believe, back in November of 2011. And conditions were placed on that subdivision with respect to a private road that is in existence in that area, and that applicant and another applicant for a previous subdivision were required to enter into an agreement for the maintenance of that road. Mr. Guardino wrote the board requesting that the board consider granting him the opportunity to address the board regarding those conditions. Although at this time the subdivision has expired as of November of 2012, I believe that once Mr. Guardino does address the matter of the private road issue, he does plan on bringing a new application back before the board for his client.
Do we need to pass a resolution or anything? Or what do you-
No.
Well, we had a recommendation, and the recommendation there was considered there by council to the town, and this was what was recommended. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right.
So he wants to be heard. That's all he's asking for at the present time.
That's right.
I don't see a problem with that.
No.
I don't see a problem either.
Okay.
However, it has to be heard under other matters because there's no application that's currently pending. Okay, we will schedule the public hearing, but there's no application. Technically, it is
He
exposed.
just wants to be heard.
Yes.
He wants to be heard, and there'll be the basis for his approval of his next application.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there was two other letters in here for us to consider, and the one was for a letter that you wrote to Walter Hilbert from the Health Department for the county. Now, if I remember right, wasn't that over on Smithtown Boulevard on the corner there of?
Yes.
So
Yes.
now, if I remember right, the application, there was never a request there for any TDRs in there, was there?
No, there wasn't. The board approved that particular subdivision.
I know, we approved a preliminary.
And the applicant's now going to request that we sterilize that property. They've changed their mind about building.
Oh, so he isn't going to build on it, in other words?
That's correct.
I got you.
So we made an application. What we did was we put that in your letter, in your packet, because we want the board to be aware of the fact exactly for what you just mentioned, Mr. Chairman. You had had this matter brought before you before, and we thought you would want to know what's going on with that particular application.
Yeah, my concern was I went by there and I see a for sale sign on the property. So I guess he decided that he'd rather do the TDRs and sell the property and whatever.
We can't speak for the applicant, but I'm surmising that based upon, if you recall, they have a rather extensive driveway situation that they would have to build.
Oh,
and
yeah.
due to the expense of that driveway, and given the current market conditions, I believe he finds it possibly better to sell the development rights outright, and he feels that that might make it better.
Okay. So have you got an answer from Mr. Hilbert yet?
No, we just sent it out. I just wanted the board to be aware of that. That was for your information.
That'll be when you get that answer. We'll handle it at that time.
We'll handle it by way of an application, but I didn't want the board to wonder what was going on with this particular application, since you gave it a preliminary approval.
Okay, and then the last letter was from Mr. Tramarco, and he had asked there on the yellow top, and you indicated that there were some problems from the state.
Well, there's two issues with regard to that. The first is one of jurisdiction, which I gave it to asked the town attorney to look into, and that was, this matter has been closed off. In other words, this board has signed off on the performance bond, and everything after that goes into the town's hands. In other words, when you're finished with the subdivision, the public improvements, everything related to that is one of the towns. So my question was to the town attorney, if somebody's coming back after, if the subdivision was still active, it's still within this board's jurisdiction. But if you've already signed off on this and the bond has been released and the dedications have all been taking place, is that really a question for the town board, or is it that for the planning board? I don't have a legal answer to that. The town attorney's looking into that. The second issue, however, is that this is a sidewalk, again, a waiver along New York State. And the state basically came up with this suggestion, or we worked with the state on this suggestion, because their original recommendation was to put in a temporary sidewalk at this particular location, which the applicant declined to do. So we sent this matter back before the state, because this is a state right-of-way, and we're bound by law to submit this to the state, because it is within their jurisdiction. So we're going to get an answer on that, and before we have the public hearing, we hope to have the town attorney's recommendation, and as well as the New York State Department of Transportation recommendation.
Well, I don't quite if the bond has been released, what is the need there for the 6,000?
You took money in lieu of construction of the sidewalk, just like we did with Mystic Falls. And now we closed off on the subdivision, and now he wants this board to revisit that particular question after the bond has been released and we've signed off on the sidewalk. And the question that comes in, is that still within the jurisdiction of the board? Because what we're talking about here is the public improvement, a portion of a subdivision. You ride herd over a subject matter until such time as the performance bond is released, at which time it goes within the jurisdiction of the town departments, highway departments or traffic safety or whatever other department has jurisdiction in that particular regard. This sidewalk happens to be within New York State DOT. So the issue comes in, as far as I see it, and I don't have an answer. And the town attorney did not have an instant answer on this one either, was whose jurisdiction is this? Is this a planning board jurisdiction? can you revisit a subdivision and re-examine the issue of a waiver request after we have signed off on it? If, for example, next week, Mystic Falls comes back and says, I don't like the $2,500, I'd like you to reconsider it for these reasons, this board can do that because we haven't signed off on Mystic Falls. But this,
Then it's still a question of whether we can do it on Yellow Top because we have signed off on Yellow Top.
that's correct.
And you're having the town attorney look into that question and give us an answer.
That's correct. And I also have New York State DOT. We've notified them so to give us a recommendation. So before we schedule the public hearing, this board will have both the interpretation of the town attorney as well as the recommendation from New York State DOT.
And Mr. Tramarko's aware of this?
Yes.
All right. Any other business for the board? We've covered it all. A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
These